The stretcher skids on wet stone, and the man on it does not move like a man. He moves like a storm nailed to wood. Silver chains cross his chest and an X-silver cuffs bite his wrists. A silver collar digs into the tendon of his throat. Every link is etched with ward sigils that sting my eyes when I look too long. He's bleeding anyway, not the clean red of a cut, darker. Thick. Wolf blood, old and new, seeping from beneath the iron plates bolted over his ribs. His shirt has been cut away. His skin is mapped with burns where silver kissed too long. He's not coming into my ward, one of the guards says, breath fast with panic. Not with her in there. As if I'm a rabbit they're about to throw into a pit. I'm not in there, I snap, already walking backward, already leading them. He is, unless you want the most notorious alpha on the continent to die on your shift. The words taste like a dare and a prayer. I hate that my voice shakes on the last syllable. They hesitate anyway, boots half-turned, hands gripping spear shafts. Behind them, the prison corridor pulses with torchlight and the low animal hum of confined bodies. Somewhere deeper, a wolf howls and then chokes it down, because even grief gets punished in Briarcliff Penitentiary. The stretcher jolts again. His head lolls toward me, and my scent glands flare in automatic betrayal, a soft, panicked ache at the base of my throat. Omega instinct. Recognition without permission. My body knows his kind the way skin knows fire. He opens his eyes, not fully, just enough. Gold irises. A black ring around each pupil like an eclipse. Every story I've ever heard about Deacon Varric says he killed a dozen men with his bare hands the night his pack burned. Every record says he gave up speech after that, sealed his mouth to the world as if words were a luxury for those who still had someone to answer them. Now he looks at me like he's still deciding whether I'm threat or water. Move, I say to the guards, to myself, to fate. We get him into the infirmary on a rush of fear. The door slams, the locks click, the air changes. Cleaner in here, sharp with spirit alcohol and dried herbs, but underneath it all is the prison's taste, rust, sweat, and the desperation of people who can't leave. One of the guards backs away as if he expects the alpha to leap up despite the silver and tear him in half. He's dying, I say. Help me. No, he says, almost pleading. No one touches him. Warden's orders. You can look, that's all. Look, like I'm a priest and he's a corpse on a table. I step to the stretcher. The alpha's chest rises in shallow, uneven pulls. Every inhale scrapes. Every exhale trembles. The silver collar is too tight. The cuffs are too tight. The chain at his waist is anchored to a steel ring welded to the stretcher itself, like they didn't even trust the bed to survive him. I press my fingers to the side of his throat anyway, careful, respectful the way you are with dangerous creatures and saints. Pulse, fast, fraying. You're going to die if I don't intervene, I whisper, because if I say it loudly it becomes real. And if you die, someone in this building gets what they want. His eyelids flutter. He doesn't speak. His gaze holds, a vow of silence, or a muzzle. The guard lingers by the door, watching, waiting for me to make the wrong move so he can report it, so he can punish me for being useful. I straighten. Get out. If you're too frightened to assist, at least don't contaminate my ward with your cowardice. His face goes red. Omega, don't. Out, I say again, and it comes out colder than I intend. That cold is a trick I learned young. Act like you belong, and sometimes the world doesn't question it. He hesitates, then spits on the floor and leaves, locking the door behind him. Now it's just me, the dying alpha, and the sound of my own blood rushing like a river against its banks. I tear open a pouch of dried wolfsbane, only enough to dull pain, not enough to poison, not enough to anger his instincts. I crush it with a mortar, mix it with willow bark, add a drop of honey for the throat, and stir until the scent smooths into something palatable. When I bring the cup to his lips, his jaw clenches, not refusal, suspicion. I won't harm you, I say, too quickly, too earnestly. If I wanted you dead, I'd do nothing. That's what they want. His nostrils flare. He smells the truth in me, and it humiliates me that my body is doing the same to him, cataloging him like a drug, smoke, pine sap, and something metallic, the scent of lightning trapped under skin. He drinks. Slow. Controlled. As if even swallowing is an act of dignity. Good, I set the cup down and lift the edge of the iron plating over his ribs. The wound beneath is not a single injury. It's a collection. Deep claw marks, spear punctures, a jagged tear that looks like it was made with a hooked blade. Some are stitched badly. Some were cauterized. Some were left open to fester. And over it all, silver dust. Ground fine and packed into the wounds like salt. My stomach lurches. Silver isn't just restraint for shifters. It's betrayal. It turns a body's healing against itself. It makes regeneration chew on its own flesh and call it medicine. Someone didn't just want him contained. Someone wanted him to suffer while he died. I reach for my cleansing oil. My hands are steady because if they shake, I'll never stop shaking. As I dab at the wound, his body jerks, not from pain alone, from the silver reacting to my touch like it recognizes intent. The sigils flare faintly. The collar hums, low and hungry. I lean closer, eyes narrowing. The collar is wrong, not standard issue. Standard collars are thick, blunt, meant to limit shifting. This one is narrow, sharp-edged, carved with runes that crawl under my gaze. A killing collar. I swallow bile. I've seen these once before on an Omega girl in a smuggler's cart, a collar designed to keep her docile until delivery. The memory hits like a fist, her eyes too wide, her wrists bruised, her scent drowned under false pheromones. The way she didn't even cry anymore, because crying was something she'd tried until it failed. I force myself back into the present. Deacon, I whisper, because his name feels like stepping onto thin ice. Can you hear me? His gaze flickers, and for a heartbeat I feel it, the weight of him, the gravity of a leader forced into stillness. I slide my fingers along the collar's underside. There is a seam, a latch, hidden, clever. Someone inside this prison has access to artisan restraints. Someone with money, someone with a market. My mouth goes dry. My pulse pounds in my ears. If I remove it, I violate protocol. I invite punishment. I invite his freedom in a building full of people who would kill him and people he could kill in return. If I don't remove it, he dies. My body makes the decision before my mind finishes arguing. I fetch my smallest scalpel, the one meant for draining abscesses. I angle it under the seam and test the mechanism with a gentle pry. The collar hums louder. The sigils flash like a warning. Deacon's gaze locks on my hands. On my face, I whisper, if you can stop me, do it now. He doesn't, so I work slow, precise. My palms slick with sweat, my throat tight. Every second I expect the door to burst open, the guards to drag me away, the warden to smile and say I did it to myself. The latch gives with a tiny, almost delicate click. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the air shifts. It's like the room exhales. Deacon's chest rises deeper. His shoulders drop a fraction. The color in his skin changes from waxy gray to bruised bronze. The wound at his ribs, still horrific, stops weeping like a river. The edges tighten as if his body remembers what it's supposed to do. Healing, real healing. My knees nearly give with relief. I brace myself against the stretcher and laugh once, sharp and silent, because joy is dangerous in here too. He watches me, and the intensity in his eyes is not hunger the way the guards warned me it would be. It's attention. It's a man who has been starved of choice noticing the person who just offered him one. I press fresh bandages down, wrap his torso, and secure the iron plating again to keep pressure on the wound. When I finish, my fingers hover over his wrist cuffs. The silver cuffs are standard issue, thick and blunt. They still burn him, still weaken him, but they're not actively murdering him the way the collar was. I shouldn't. A key scrapes outside the lock. My breath stops. I snatch the broken collar halves, shove them into the linen bin under bloody cloths, and wipe my hands with alcohol until my skin stings. I try to look like a healer who did exactly what she was told. The door swings open. Chief Overseer Morkant fills the doorway like a bad omen. He's broad, red-faced, his uniform immaculate in a place where cleanliness is a myth. 2 guards flank him, hands on weapons, eyes darting between me and the Alpha like they're watching a rope bridge sway. Morkant's gaze slides over the stretcher. Still breathing. For now, I say. His eyes land on my face. He smiles without warmth. You were told not to touch him. I was told to keep him alive, I reply, careful, controlled. Those are not the same instruction. His jaw flexes. He steps in, boots loud on stone. The guards stay at the threshold like they can feel something in the air they don't want to name. Morkant leans over Deacon, close enough that I see the shift in his expression when he realizes the Alpha's breathing is stronger than expected. You, Morkant says to me, think you're clever. I can't help it. My eyes flick to the linen bin. Morkant follows the motion, and his smile grows. Fear licks up my spine. He reaches out, grabs my upper arm, and squeezes until pain blooms. Maybe I should remind you what happens to Omegas who meddle where they don't belong. My mouth opens. No sound comes out. For a second I'm 16 again, pinned by a man who smelled like ale and power, told I should be grateful for protection. Morkant jerks me closer. Do you want the warden to hear how you? Something in the room changes again. Not air this time. Presence. Deacon shifts on the stretcher. A slow movement. A controlled one. His chains clink softly. His gaze lifts to Morkant's hand on my arm. Morkant laughs, loud and ugly. Look at him. He can't even. Deacon's fingers close around the silver chain at his chest. He grips it like it's nothing. Muscle in his forearm cords, deep and brutal. The chain groans. Silver should resist. Silver should burn him, should punish him for even trying. But he pulls anyway. The link snaps with a sound like a gunshot. The guards flinch. Morkant freezes. Deacon sits up. His breathing is steady now. His eyes are fully open, bright gold, and the pain in them is not weakness. It's the kind of pain that teaches a man how to destroy without hesitation. Morkant's grip on me tightens. Lie down, he barks at Deacon, voice cracking. You will. Deacon looks at him, then at me, then back again. And for the first time in 7 years, the infamous silent Alpha speaks. One word, low, commanding, final as a blade. Stop. The room goes very quiet, as if even the torches decide not to crackle. Morkant's face drains of color. He tries to sneer, tries to hide fear behind authority. You don't give orders here. Deacon's gaze doesn't change. He lifts his other hand, and with a sickening ease, he breaks the second chain across his chest as if it's thread. The silver cuffs still bind his wrists, but he doesn't need full freedom to make a point. Morkant releases my arm like my skin has turned to acid. I take one step back, heart hammering, and I hate myself for the relief that floods me, for the way my Omega instincts practically sing at the sight of a powerful Alpha turning his attention toward my safety. I hate that my body wants to trust him. Deacon's eyes find mine again, and the intensity there makes me feel seen in a way that terrifies me more than any threat. Morkant swallows. Guards, he says, too loudly. Restrain him. The guards don't move, because Deacon is smiling now. Not kindly. Not happily, like a storm choosing where to land. Morkant's gaze flicks to me, and I see the calculation, blame the Omega, Always blame the Omega. You did this, he hisses. You provoked him. I saved his life, I whisper. Morkant's hand lifts again, as if he can't help himself, as if hitting me is the only language he's fluent in. I flinch. Deacon moves. It's not a lunge, it's not sloppy. It's a precise, brutal pivot of his body, a strike with the heel of his palm that slams Morkant's wrist sideways with a snap that makes my stomach twist. Morkant howls, dropping to his knees, cradling his arm. Deacon doesn't finish him. He doesn't even look at him. He looks at me. And in that look is a vow more binding than any chain. The guards finally surge forward, but they stop short, weapons half raised, uncertain. None of them want to be the first to stab a legend and discover how legends retaliate. Deacon lowers himself back to the stretcher, deliberately. He offers his bound wrists forward as if to show he's not trying to run, as if he's choosing restraint, as if he could leave and is deciding not to. Morkant glares up at me through pained tears. You're finished, he spits. The warden will have you flogged for this. Deacon speaks again, voice like iron dragged across stone. No, the word is not loud. It doesn't need to be. Morkant's lips peel back. He thinks he can protect you. He's property, he's a prisoner. The guards glance at each other uneasy because they all heard it, an alpha speaking, an alpha breaking silver, an alpha choosing a side. I stand very still, fingers curled into fists, my arm throbbing where Morkant grabbed me, and I realize with cold clarity that the collar pieces in my linen bin are evidence. Evidence of sabotage. Evidence that someone in this prison is not just cruel but organized. And evidence that I, Lyra, have just stepped onto a path where every step forward burns the bridge behind me. Morkant is dragged out by his own men, swearing and cursing. The door slams again. Silence. Deacon's gaze stays on me like a weight. My skin prickles. My throat aches with words I can't organize. You shouldn't have done that, I say finally. His mouth presses into a line. I exhale, bitter. I don't mean for me. I mean for you. He tilts his head slightly, as if listening to a sound I can't hear. Perhaps the prison's heartbeat, perhaps my pulse, perhaps his own instincts snarling at silver and confinement. I step closer despite myself, because I am a healer and this is a wounded man and my hands do not know how to abandon what they started. I adjust his bandage, check the edges of the wound, and feel the warmth of his skin returning. His healing is working now. Which means the person who wanted him dead will notice, and they will not be gentle. I reach into the linen bin and pull the collar halves out with trembling fingers. I hold them up between us. This, I whisper, was designed to kill you. Deacon's eyes narrow. A flicker of something crosses his face, sharp as grief. Recognition, perhaps, not of the object but of the intent. He lifts his bound hands and very carefully touches one broken edge with his fingertip. Silver should burn. It does, a faint sizzle and a tightening of his jaw, but he doesn't pull away. As if pain is a language he's fluent in too, I swallow. Someone inside Briarcliff did this. Someone with access, someone protected. His gaze shifts to the door, then back to me. He doesn't speak. But his silence feels different now. Less like emptiness, more like control. I shouldn't be alone in here with him. That's what the rules say. But the rules also said I shouldn't remove a collar. The rules said I should accept a man's hand on my arm. The rules said I should keep my head down and survive by being small. I've done small. It never saved me. I set the collar halves on the table, my hands shaking only a little now. I need you to understand something. Deacon watches. I am not your mate, I say, the word tasting like danger, like folklore turned to law. I am not your property. I am not asking for your protection. His gaze holds mine, unwavering. And if you try to claim me, I continue, voice rising, because anger is safer than fear, I will fight you with everything I have. A slow inhale, a slow exhale. Then, to my shock, Deacon's expression softens by a fraction, not into sweetness, into something older, a man who has lost too much recognizing someone who refuses to be taken. He speaks rough and quiet. Safe, I blink. Safe, I repeat, confused. He nods once, as if that is the entire argument. As if that is the only promise he's willing to offer. Safe, not owned, not caged, not quieted. My throat tightens anyway, traitorous, because no one in Briarcliff has ever offered me safety without a price. And yet his eyes say he would pay it himself. A key scrapes outside the lock again. This time, multiple voices, a rush of boots. I turn toward the door, collar halves on the table, my heart dropping as the reality crashes in. The scandal is already forming. The story will already be spreading. The silent Alpha spoke. The Alpha broke Silver. The Omega healer was alone with him. The Omega healer removed something she shouldn't have removed. They will not ask what the collar was. They will ask what I am. They will decide what I deserve. The door swings open. Warden Sarnai Calpern enters like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. Tall, elegant gray hair braided tight, eyes cold as winter glass. Behind her, a dozen guards fill the hall, spears leveled. Morkant stands among them, arms splinted, hatred simmering out of him like smoke. The warden's gaze lands on Deacon, then on me, then on the broken chains. Her expression does not change. Lyra Valen, she says, and my name sounds like a sentence. Step away from the prisoner. I do not move quickly. I do not run. I take one measured step back, because sudden movement in a room full of weapons is a way to die. The warden's gaze flicks to the collar halves on the table. A pause. So small no one else might notice. But I notice. Her eyes sharpen, not surprise, recognition. My stomach drops through the floor. The warden knows exactly what that collar is. Morkant points at me with his good hand. She did it, he spits. She provoked him. She tampered with restraints. She's trying to free him. Warden Sarnai's voice is calm. Is that true, Lyra? I open my mouth. My tongue feels too big for my teeth. Behind me, Deacon shifts, and I can feel him like heat at my back, a presence that makes the guards tighten their grips. I force myself to speak. The collar was killing him. Silence. The warden's eyes remain on mine. You removed it. I did, Morkant laughs, triumphant. Treason. The warden lifts a hand, and he shuts his mouth as if her fingers closed around his throat from across the room. She steps closer to the table, picks up one collar half, and turns it in her palm like a jeweler assessing a stone. The silver catches torchlight. The runes gleam. Her gaze returns to me. Why would an Omega healer risk her position for the continent's most dangerous Alpha? Because I'm not cruel. Because I'm not cowardly. Because someone in your prison is murdering him on purpose, and you know it. But those answers will get me killed. So I give her the only truth I can afford. Because I'm a healer, I say, voice steady now. And because if he dies under my hands, I become complicit. The warden studies me for a long moment. Then, without looking away from me, she addresses the guards. Take Lyra Valen into custody. Immediate inquiry. Remove her access to the infirmary. The words hit me like cold water. My breath catches. Warden, now, she says. A guard steps forward, reaching for my wrists. And in that instant, Deacon rises again. Not fast. Not wild. Just inevitable. The silver cuffs still bind him. The chain at his waist still anchors him to the stretcher. Yet every guard flinches as if he's already free. Deacon's gaze locks on the guard's hand touching me. The guard's fingers hover in the air, uncertain. Deacon speaks, voice quiet, but it fills the room anyway. Mine. The word lands like a stone in my chest. Rage flashes hot and instant. Mine, the warden's eyes narrow. Morkant's face twists in delight. See, she seduced him. Deacon's gaze snaps to Morkant, and Morkant goes silent mid-breath. The warden's voice is silk over steel. You claim her. Deacon does not look away from me. His jaw works once, as if the act of speaking still cost him something. Then he says, slow, deliberate, each word dragged from a place that has been sealed shut for years. Protection. My hands curl into fists. My skin burns with humiliation and fury and a traitorous, aching warmth that makes me want to scream. I am not a thing you can, I start. The warden cuts in, coldly amused. Do you understand what you've invited, Lyra Valen? I do. I understand the law here. The prison's private statutes. The way titles can become chains. I also understand that if I'm dragged into an inquiry, I won't walk out. Not because I'm guilty, but because I've seen too much. The warden turns the collar half in her hand one more time. We will hold a tribunal at dusk, she announces to the room. Until then, the Omega healer remains under guard. Her gaze flicks to Deacon. And the Alpha remains in restraints. If he attempts escape, he will be executed. Deacon's eyes do not change. It's the warden's gaze that sharpens, because she can see what I can see now too. He could run. He won't. Not while I'm being taken. The guards close around me. As they lead me toward the door, my arm throbbing, my heart slamming against my ribs, I meet Deacon's gaze one last time. His mouth moves. No sound. Then a whisper that barely reaches me over the clatter of boots. Safe. I don't know whether to hate him for it. I don't know whether to believe him. But as the infirmary door shuts behind me, I realize something with a clarity that tastes like iron. Whatever is happening in Briarcliff is bigger than my job, bigger than my fear, bigger than the rules I've been forced to live under. And the most dangerous alpha on the continent has just put himself between me and the people who want me silent. Whether I asked for it or not. Deacon the corridor reeks of panic when they take her, not the guards' fear. I've lived with that smell for months, years, a steady perfume of men who carry spears because they don't have courage. This is different. This is the sharp, sweet spike of an Omega being cornered. Her, Lyra Valen, healer hands, defiant eyes. The scent of crushed herbs and stubbornness and something fragile she keeps hidden under anger. I watch her disappear behind bodies and armor, and the restraint around my wrists burns like laughter. Silver is supposed to make me small. It does not understand what grief builds. When my pack died, something in me went quiet, not because I had nothing to say, because if I opened my mouth, the world would hear what it had done, and I would never stop screaming. Silence kept the scream contained. Silence kept me from tearing cities apart in search of answers no one would give. Now the silence has cracked. One word was enough to make them freeze. One word, and I felt my own power return like blood to a limb. Stop. I hadn't meant to speak. The sound tore out of me when Morkant's hand closed on her arm. There are laws in my bones older than this prison, older than their ink and their seals. You do not strike what you cannot defend. Lyra is not mine. The word left my mouth anyway, and it tasted like sin. Mine, not ownership, not a collar. A claim is a shield in a world that hunts Omegas like currency. I know this world. I've torn it open before. I've seen the carts, the ledgers, the way men talk about bodies like barrels of wine. I watch the warden's face as she holds the collar half. She recognizes the runes, so she is either the one who placed it or the one who allowed it. Either way, she is part of the rot. My jaw tightens. The chain at my waist pulls when I shift my weight, reminding me of limits. Limits are a suggestion. I lower myself back onto the stretcher slowly, because the guards are nervous and nervous men make mistakes, and mistakes can put a spear through Lyra's throat before I reach her. The tribunal at dusk, an inquiry, a stage. They will put her in front of their rules and ask her to bleed truth until it suits them. They will try to make her confess to seduction, to treason, to crimes that justify what they already intend to do. Remove her, sell her, silence her. I've watched them do it to others. Not with my eyes, because they kept me drugged, kept me chained, kept me locked in a cell where even light was rationed. But I heard, Omegas don't scream in Briarcliff. Screaming draws attention. Attention draws punishment. Punishment draws buyers. Lyra smells like someone who learned that lesson and refused it anyway. She removed the collar. She chose my life over her safety, and she didn't even ask me to be grateful. I drag my bound hands toward the edge of the stretcher and let the silver bite. Pain is clean, pain is honest. The guards outside the infirmary murmur uncertain. I hear Morkant's voice, high with spite, telling his version of the story already. I turn my head slightly, listening through stone and distance the way a wolf listens through winter. There are other sounds, too. A soft chime of keys, a quickened heartbeat, a scent that doesn't belong to guard sweat or torch smoke. Perfume, cheap and floral, meant to disguise the truth of a body. Under it, the unmistakable tang of suppressant tinctures. Omega suppression. Someone nearby is masked. Someone is being moved, not for an inquiry, for transport. My muscles coil and the chain at my waist groans. The prison is not a prison, not truly. It's a market with walls. Lyra saw the killing collar and understood. The warden saw it and did not flinch. Morkant grabbed Lyra like she was already his to discipline. They are not afraid of rules. They are the rules. I close my eyes for one breath and let the old vow loosen just slightly in the place where it has been lodged in my throat like a bone. Words are weapons. If I'm going to use them again, I will not waste them. I open my eyes. Dusk is hours away. They think time belongs to them. They forget what an alpha does when he decides someone will live. I flex my hands inside the cuffs, feeling the shape of the metal, the weakness in the hinge, the way silver sings when it's stressed. Not yet. Not in front of their witnesses. Not before I know where they are taking her. I inhale again, slow, and taste Lyra's scent still lingering in the infirmary. Alcohol, lavender, iron, and a thread of fury that makes something in my chest ache with recognition. She doesn't want a protector. She wants freedom. So I will not cage her with gratitude or claim her with arrogance. I will burn down the system that thinks her body is a bargaining chip. And if I must use my name, my reputation, and the ancient legal weight of an alpha's bond to keep her alive long enough to choose her own fate, then I will. Because someone already tried to kill me in this place. Now they've threatened her. And I have nothing left to lose that I'm not willing to spend. Lyra, they don't take me to a cell. They take me to a small stone room that pretends to be an office, a desk bolted to the floor, a single chair, a lamp that hisses with blue flame, and a drain in the center of the room like someone anticipated tears or blood. A guard pushes me inside. The door shuts. Locks click. I stand in the middle of the room and force my lungs to work. My arm throbs where Morkant grabbed me. Under the pain is something worse. The memory of Deacon saying mine and the way my body reacted like it had been waiting for a word like that for years. No, I will not be reduced to instinct. I press my palm to my throat, right over the glands that betray me when I'm afraid, and breathe in through my nose until the panic dulls. I am not a girl in a cart. I am a healer in a prison, and I have just made myself a problem. Footsteps approach. The door opens. Warden Sarnai enters alone, closing the door behind her with a soft click that feels more dangerous than any slam. She studies me as if I'm a specimen. Sit, I don't. Am I being charged? A faint curve at the corner of her mouth. Bold. My boldness kept your prisoner alive, I say. Your staff would have watched him die. Perhaps, she agrees, too easily. She circles the desk, fingers brushing the lamp as if enjoying the heat. Tell me, Lyra Valen, where did you learn to recognize artisan restraint runes? My stomach tightens. Of course she noticed. Of course she knows exactly what that collar was. I choose my words like stepping stones over deep water. From books. And from experience, she murmurs. I don't answer. Her gaze sharpens, satisfied. You removed the collar. You improved his condition. Yes. And in exchange, she continues, voice smooth, he speaks, he breaks chain, he claims you. He turns a routine transfer into a spectacle. Transfer, my blood goes cold. He wasn't supposed to come here to die, I say slowly. He was supposed to be moved. The warden's eyes glint. Clever after all. Moved where? My voice cracks despite my effort. She leans forward slightly as if telling me a secret. Somewhere you cannot follow. Somewhere his legend will fetch a higher price than his corpse. I stare at her, nausea rising. You're selling him. She lifts a shoulder in a shrug that pretends innocence. The state calls it relocation. Investors call it asset management. And Omegas? I hear myself ask, and my own voice sounds distant, like it belongs to someone else. What do investors call Omegas? Her smile widens by a millimeter. Now we're speaking plainly. My hands curl into fists. You're running trafficking operations out of this prison. She tilts her head. Such an ugly word. A knock at the door. Warden Sarnai doesn't look away from me. Enter. Morkant steps inside, his arms splinted, his eyes bright with spite. He carries a folder paper in a place that hates records unless records can be used as weapons. He sets it on the desk. Her file, he says, past placements, previous Guardian contracts. She has a history. Guardian contracts. My vision narrows, my mouth tastes like bile. Morkant's grin is sharp. She's ungrateful, Warden, always biting the hand that feeds her. I didn't bite, I whisper. I survived. Warden Sarnai opens the folder and flips through it with elegant fingers. An Omega with training, literacy, medical skill. Her eyes lift to mine. You are valuable. The word lands like a collar around my throat. I force myself not to flinch. Then you won't kill me. No, she agrees. Not if you are cooperative. Morkant leans closer, breath sour. You'll confess you tampered with restraints. You'll confess you provoked him. And if I do, I ask, voice low. The warden closes the folder. Then you will be reassigned. I swallow. To where? Her gaze is calm, almost kind, which is worse. To a patron who appreciates spirited Omegas. The room tilts. The drain in the floor seems suddenly very relevant. I think of Deacon's eyes on me. Not hungry, not leering, just intent. Like he saw the person inside my body, not the price tag. I cannot let them move me. I cannot let them bury me under perfume and paperwork and call it protection. I lift my chin. I want a tribunal, I say. Public, by statute, Morkant laughs. You don't get to demand. You said there would be one, I cut in, looking at the warden. At dusk. If you're so certain I'm guilty, prove it with witnesses. A pause. The warden's gaze holds mine, and in it I see calculation, the shifting of pieces on a board. A public tribunal is risk. Risk means eyes. Eyes mean questions. But refusing it now would look like fear, and fear is a crack in authority. Very well, Warden Sarnai says softly. At dusk. Morkant's smile falters, then hardens. He leans in, voice a hiss meant only for me. You'll beg before the end. I meet his gaze and feel something inside me go very still. Maybe I will beg, but not for mercy. For time, for a chance. For a door to crack open wide enough that I can shove the truth through it. Because the collar halves on the table were not just evidence of sabotage. They were proof of a market. And I have the terrible sense that Deacon Varix did not choose to stay because he wanted revenge. He chose to stay because he already knows how this ends for someone like me, and he intends to change the ending. Deacon, They are moving an Omega tonight. Not Lyra yet. Another one. I smell the suppressant and the false floral perfume through stone and distance, and it drags old rage up from the bottom of my ribs. I lie still on the stretcher while the infirmary door remains guarded, and I listen. This is what silence was good for. Not emptiness, patience. I map the rhythm of the prison by sound, the changing of shifts, the clink of keys, the heavy tread of Morkant's boots, the lighter steps of a guard who limps, the scrape of a cartwheel that wobbles. The cart is important. It passes twice in an hour, both times heading toward the west gate. The west gate is not used for food delivery, not for laundry, not for waste. It is used for departures that do not go in the ledger. My fingers flex in the cuffs again. The hinge gives a fraction, just a fraction, the metal tired from years of use. They rely on Silver's pain more than its strength. Pain teaches wolves to endure. It does not teach us to surrender. A guard opens the infirmary door enough to shove in a cup of water and a plate of tasteless porridge, then shuts it quickly, eyes wide, as if my gaze might crawl out and strangle him. He doesn't speak. I don't either. But when he retreats, I catch his scent. Fear, yes, and underneath it a thread of disgust that does not belong to me. He knows about the market. Good. Guilt is a lever. The tribunal at dusk will draw bodies to the hall. Bodies mean confusion. Confusion means openings. I stare at the ceiling and remember the law the warden thinks she owns. Pair bonding statutes. An alpha's formal claim, recognized by state and pack law, can grant an Omega protected status. Immunity from reassignment. Immunity from sale. A shield written into the bones of governance, because the world fears what an enraged alpha will do if his mate is taken. They twist that law into a chain too, forcing bonds for profit, staging claims like performances. Lyra said she would fight if I tried to claim her. Good. She should. A bond without consent is not protection. It is another prison. But a legal status can be a weapon in the right hands if both parties choose it with eyes open. The warden will try to force Lyra into a corner where the only escape looks like submission. I know corners. I have lived in them. The difference is that I no longer have to accept the walls. I breathe in, slow, and hold Lyra's scent in my mind like a vow. Not possession, not hunger, promise, safe. At dusk, I will speak again. And the entire prison will remember why my name became a warning parents used to quiet their children at night. Not because I am a monster, because monsters are easy. Because I am a man who learned what happens when you let evil operate quietly, behind paperwork and locked doors. They will not have quiet. Not anymore. Lyra, the tribunal hall smells like old incense and newer blood. They've arranged the space to make truth feel small. A raised dais for the warden, benches for guards, a narrow square of stone in the middle where the accused stands exposed beneath the high lamps. The lamps are ward lanterns, blue and buzzing, meant to irritate shifter senses and keep tempers clipped. Meant to keep alphas from remembering what rage can do. I stand in that square with my hands unbound, an insult dressed as mercy, because they want me to look harmless. They want the watching eyes to decide, before I speak, that an Omega healer could never move events unless she used her body as a lever. Morkant is seated close to the dais, splinted arm propped like a trophy. His mouth keeps twitching, eager for the moment I break. Warden Sarnai Calpern sits above us all, posture elegant, expression spare. She looks like law carved into a woman. And somewhere behind me, through a side archway, I hear the unmistakable sound of silver dragged across stone. They're bringing Deacon in. My pulse betrays me, quickening in an ugly, hopeful way I resent. I remind myself fiercely that hope is a drug in this place. Hope makes you careless. The guards shift, spears angling as if the air itself becomes heavier when he enters. The murmuring dies. Even Morkant's breathing seems to pause. Deacon is led in by 6 men and a length of chain anchored to a ring bolt in the floor, as if they think metal can bargain with a wolf god. He's still cuffed in silver, still chained at the waist, but he walks upright, shoulders squared, gaze level. He looks less like a prisoner than a storm tolerating a bottle. His eyes find me at once. That should not matter. It does. My throat tightens with anger at myself, at him, at the way my body remembers the single word he gave me in the infirmary like a blanket pulled over trembling skin. Safe. Warden Sarnai lifts her hand, and the ward lanterns flare. This tribunal will determine whether healer Lyra Valen violated prison protocol, incited prisoner aggression, and conspired in an attempted escape. A ripple moves through the hall, anticipation, hunger. People love a fall. Especially when the falling one is an Omega who dared to stand tall. Warden Sarnai's eyes settle on me. State your plea. Not guilty, I say, and my voice lands cleanly. And I submit evidence. Morkant snorts. Evidence from an Omega. I turn my head slowly and look at him until he shifts in his seat. The collar I removed was not standard restraint. It was a killing collar. A murmur. Warden Sarnai's face stays calm. Too calm. I recognized artisan runes, I continue, because I have seen them before on an Omega in a smuggler's cart. A collar meant to keep her docile until delivery. The word delivery makes several guards flinch, quick and telling. Warden Sarnai's voice is mild. You claim trafficking. I claim, I say, forcing each word through the tightness in my throat, that Briarcliff is being used as cover. That prisoners are being relocated off ledger. That Omegas are being reassigned to patrons who pay. Morkant rises halfway, face flushing. Lies. Warden Sarnai lifts a finger, and he stops as if struck. Your accusations are extreme, healer. I know, I say. That's why I brought proof. I reach into the pocket of my plain tribunal dress and pull out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. 2 halves of the collar clasp, cleaned enough that the runes are visible, not so cleaned that anyone can deny where it came from. I hold it up. Warden Sarnai's gaze drops to it. For a heartbeat, something flickers, an old familiarity, almost fond. My stomach knots. She's not merely aware, she's involved. Those could be forged, Morkant says quickly, sensing danger. They could, I agree, if they didn't match the runes etched into the West Gate's private seals. The hall goes very still. Warden Sarnai's head tilts by a fraction. What do you know of West Gate seals? I know, I say, and my voice shakes now not with fear but with fury, that your carts don't go through the main portcullis at night. They go west. I know because I heard it, and because I smell suppressant tinctures in your corridors, and because this prison reeks of cheap floral perfume meant to drown an Omega's scent. A low, ugly laugh comes from somewhere among the guards. Not amusement, nerves. Warden Sarnai's gaze sharpens. Healer Lyra, you are treading into slander. Then open the West Gate records, I say. Bring the ledger here. Morkant leans forward, voice oily. We don't answer to an Omega's paranoia. Warden Sarnai's expression becomes slightly regretful, as if I've disappointed her. You removed a restraint without authorization. You admit it. You admit you were alone with the prisoner. You admit the prisoner spoke after years of silence. That is correlation enough for conspiracy. My mouth goes dry. This is how they do it. They build a story that fits their hunger, then call it law. I force myself to breathe. Then question him, I say, and I turn because my pride won't let me avoid it. Ask Deacon what he felt with that collar on. Ask him what it was designed to do. A collective inhale, because everyone knows he doesn't speak. Deacon's gaze stays on the dais, steady. His jaw flexes once. Warden Sarnai's eyes narrow, not at him, at me. You demand testimony from a prisoner with a documented vow of silence. I demand, I say, quietly now, that you stop using silence as your favorite kind of cage. For a moment, I think she'll order my removal. Instead, she gestures toward Deacon with a languid hand. Prisoner Varex, if you wish to defend your healer, you may attempt speech. Attempt. Like she expects him to fail. Like she wants him to fail. Deacon lifts his head. The ward lanterns buzz, hungry for his senses. Then he speaks, and the sound is rougher than before, as if words are stones he's had to pry from his own throat. Collar, he says. Wrong. A shiver moves through the hall. A guard swears under his breath. Warden Sarnay's eyes harden. Explain. Deacon's gaze drifts across the room, over Morkant, over the guards, over the watching faces. When he speaks again, his voice steadies, gaining strength like a river finding its bed. Silver in wounds, he says. No heal, slow death. A pulse of disgust runs through the benches. Even some of the guards look away. Morkant jumps in, desperate. He's manipulating you. He wants freedom. Deacon's head turns, slow, and the hall seems to shrink under the weight of his attention. Morkant's voice dies. Deacon looks back to the warden. Someone wanted me dead. Warden Sarnay's lips press together. And you claim this healer saved you. Deacon's gaze slides to me. The heat of it hits my skin, too intimate, too direct, and my Omega instincts surge like an animal scenting shelter in a storm. I hate it, I crave it. Both truths twist inside me until I can barely stand. She chose, he says, risk for me. Warden Sarnay's eyes glitter. And in exchange you claimed her. The word claim rings like a bell. People lean forward. I snap, unable to stop myself. He doesn't get to. Deacon's gaze stays on the dais, but his voice drops, gentler, and somehow that gentleness is what unravels me. Shield, my chest aches. Warden Sarnay smiles, slow. A shield has a price. In our statutes, an alpha's claim is either formal or it is nothing. Morkant's mouth curls. He senses the trap too. Warden Sarnay continues, voice smooth as ink. If you claim her formally, she falls under mate protection law. She becomes immune to reassignment while the bond stands. She also becomes your responsibility. Your conduct will be judged through her. My skin goes cold. She's offering us a cage made of velvet because it looks like a choice while it tightens around the throat. Warden Sarnay's gaze fixes on Deacon. So, Prisoner Varex, will you formalize your claim here, under witness? Or will you concede that your outburst was mere aggression and the healer's involvement improper? Murmurs explode, hungry and sharp. The hall becomes a mouth waiting to bite down. Deacon's hands clench in silver cuffs. The metal bites, he doesn't flinch. My mind races. If he formalizes, I gain immunity, temporary, powerful, written in their precious laws. If he doesn't, I'm condemned, and he's labeled unstable, and Warden Sarnay keeps her market clean. But a formal bond, I've worn a guardian contract once, a softer phrase for the same ugliness. I swore I would never again put my life under someone else's name. I look at Deacon, furious at him for being the only door left in the wall. His gaze meets mine, no command in it, no entitlement, only a question he can't afford to say aloud. Will you let me? My heart pounds so hard it hurts. I take a step forward because if this is done, it will not be done over my head like a verdict. If we do this, I say, voice ringing into the hush, it will be on terms. Warden Sarnay's brows lift, amused. Terms from an Omega on trial. Yes, I say. Citizen who knows the law you're trying to weaponize. The warden's smile thins. Speak. I swallow. My hands shake, but I keep my chin up. No consummation clause, I say plainly, and the hall stirs with scandal. I push through it. Not as a condition of legal protection. Not now, not ever unless I choose it freely. Morkant laughs loud. You think you can bargain with? Warden Sarnai's gaze cuts him silent again because she wants to hear this. She wants the spectacle. I turn to Deacon. My voice lowers, but it still carries. You will not touch me in anger. You will not use your scent to push me. You will not speak for me unless I ask. You will not call me yours as if I'm property. Silence. Deacon's jaw works. He nods once. I exhale, a painful relief. Then I add the last piece, the one that makes my spine go rigid. And you will help me expose whoever put that collar on you, whoever is selling omegas out of this prison. You will not burn the world down blindly. You will follow my lead when it comes to evidence. Deacon's gaze sharpens, and for the first time I see something like approval. He answers with one word, rough but clear. Yes. Warden Sarnai's expression shifts, annoyance now, because the bond she meant to use as a leash is turning into a blade in our hands. Very well, she says. Formalize. A clerk steps forward with a small iron bowl of salt and ash and a strip of parchment with the prison seal. 2 guards position themselves near me, too close, ready to intervene if Deacon does something dramatic. My skin crawls. The clerk speaks the ritual words, old legal phrases that have outlived the people who wrote them. The lamps buzz. The hall holds its breath. Deacon steps as close as his chain allows. The silver at his waist rattles. His scent hits me, restrained but present, pine, smoke, storm metal. My glands ache in response, traitorous and immediate. I hate my body for wanting what my life has taught me to fear. Deacon lifts his cuffed hands, slow, giving me time to pull away. He doesn't touch my throat. He reaches for my wrist instead, palm hovering until I nod, just once small. His fingers close gently around my wrist, warm despite the silver. The clerk tells him to mark. Mark means teeth in the old ways. Not to break, not to claim through pain, but to seal scent and intent into skin where magic recognizes it as vow. My stomach flips. Deacon's gaze locks on mine. He waits, still as stone, as if he'll let the entire hall laugh and jeer before he makes me feel trapped. I nod again, and it feels like stepping off a cliff with my eyes open. His mouth lowers to my wrist. His breath is warm. His lips brush my skin, barely there. Then a pressure, firm, controlled, and the smallest sting as his teeth press, not hard enough to tear, only enough to leave a shallow crescent. The hall exhales in a wave. My body reacts like lightning under my skin, heat blooming from the mark outward. I sway, shocked by the intimacy of it, by the way something inside me relaxes as if it recognizes the shape of shelter. Deacon's eyes close for a heartbeat. When he opens them, his gaze is darker, not hungry, anchored. He turns his wrist, offering it to me in return. The ritual is mutual. Always has been, before men started pretending it was. My throat tightens with something that feels too much like tears. I lean forward and press my lips to his wrist first, a soft apology for every fear I've aimed at him. Then I bite, careful, controlled, enough to leave my own mark. His breath catches. A low sound in his chest, almost a growl swallowed down. The ward lanterns flicker. The clerk dips a quill, records the bond under prison statute, seals it with ash and salt. Warden Sarnai's voice snaps through the charged air. By statute, the Omega is protected from reassignment while the bond stands. The Alpha assumes responsibility for her conduct. Morkant's eyes blaze with hatred. Warden Sarnai continues too quickly. And by statute, the tribunal is concluded. The healer is remanded. No, Deacon says, and the single syllable cracks like thunder. The hall freezes. Deacon lifts his chained waist slightly, enough that the links pull taut and sing. He turns his head toward the benches of guards, toward the people who have been paid to look away. West Gate, he says. Tonight. Warden Sarnai's eyes narrow. Prisoner, you will be silent. Deacon's gaze returns to her, and his voice grows steadier with each word, as if speech is a muscle he's remembering. Cart, perfume, suppressant, Omegas moved. The hall erupts shouts, denials, laughter that sounds like panic. Warden Sarnai slams her palm down. The lamps flare, trying to seize control. I seize my moment. I lift my marked wrist and show it to the nearest row of guards, and my voice slices through the chaos. If you drag me away now, you violate mate protection law. If you violate it, you invite alpha retaliation. You all know what that means. Several guards shift, uneasy, because they do know, not as romance, as consequence. Warden Sarnai's gaze is lethal now. You think a bond makes you untouchable. I think, I say, voice shaking with adrenaline, that the law you used to sell us can be used to stop you. Morkant surges to his feet. Warden, allow me. Deacon moves so fast the chain at his waist snaps taut and yanks him back, but his cuffed hands still reach Morkant's collar and drag him forward as if Morkant weighs nothing. Morkant's face goes white with terror. Deacon's voice is quiet, intimate, and somehow the whole hall hears it anyway. Where Ledger? Morkant stammers, spittle forming. I don't. Deacon tightens his grip just enough that Morkant chokes. Not to kill, to persuade. Warden Sarnai rises, voice sharp. Release him? Ledger, Deacon repeats, and the word is a blade. Morkant's eyes roll. He points with shaking fingers toward the dais. Under her chair, hidden compartment. The hall goes dead silent. Warden Sarnai's face becomes still in the way masks become still right before they crack. I look up at her and feel a cold satisfaction bloom. Got you. A young guard, limping, the one I've seen in the corridors, takes a half step forward as if he can't stop himself. His voice trembles. Warden. Is that true? Warden Sarnai's gaze lashes toward him. Stand down. He doesn't. That single defiance spreads like fire through dry grass. Two more guards shift, their spears lowering not toward Deacon but away from him. Warden Sarnai's control wavers. Deacon releases Morkant, and Morkant collapses, coughing, humiliated and furious. Warden Sarnai's hand moves, quick, a small lever under the armrest of her chair. The ward lanterns scream brighter. The floor runes flare. A containment net, invisible until it shimmers, snaps up around Deacon like a cage of light. He grunts, muscles locking, silver cuffs blazing. Pain hits him hard enough that his knees buckle. My heart lurches. Warden Sarnai's voice is cold, triumphant. You see, an alpha is a weapon. That is why he remains contained. I move before I think, stepping toward him, hands raised. Stop it, you're burning him alive. Then he should have remembered his place, she says. And in that moment, the limping guard does something I will remember for the rest of my life. He climbs the dais. A guard is not supposed to climb the dais. He reaches under the warden's chair, fingers fumbling, and yanks out a leather-bound ledger as thick as a brick. Warden Sarnai's head whips toward him. You traitorous! He flings the ledger down onto the stone, so it lands with a heavy slap that echoes like judgment. The hall leans in as if drawn by gravity. Names spill across pages. Dates. Seals. Routes, relocations. Patrons, placements. The ink is neat, bureaucratic, obscene. Morkant makes a strangled sound. Warden Sarnai's face empties of anything human. I drop to my knees beside Deacon, who is braced against the shimmering net, breath ragged, jaw clenched. Look at me, I whisper, hands hovering. Look at me, breathe. His eyes find mine through pain. Stay, I beg, and the word tastes like everything I swore I'd never say to a man again. Stay with me. Deacon's breath drags in. His gaze anchors. The net still burns him, but he doesn't vanish into rage. He stays present. The limping guard, God's bless him, flips the ledger open to a section marked with the West Gate seal and shouts, voice cracking, "This is not prison work. This is trade." The hall explodes. Guards surge, not all in the same direction. Some toward the dais, some away. Spears dip and rise. Warden Sarnai snaps orders, but her voice no longer holds the room. Because ink is louder than fear when enough eyes finally look at it. I push to my feet and stand between Deacon and the net, uselessly defiant. "Release him," I shout, throat raw. "If he dies under your net, this hall becomes your grave." Warden Sarnai's lips peel back. "You think he'll protect you, he'll destroy everything." "Maybe," I say, shaking, "but he's still more honest than you." Deacon's voice, strained, cuts in. "Gate, now." I understand instantly, while they're distracted, while the ledger is exposed. The West Gate cart will still move, because traffickers don't stop a shipment just because a room got noisy. My skin goes cold with urgency. "How do we get there with you in a net?" Deacon's gaze flicks to the dais lever, then to me. A silent question. "Will you?" My mouth goes dry. Every part of me that learned obedience screams not to move, not to draw attention, not to challenge a warden. But I'm done living on my knees. I run, not gracefully, not like a hero. Like an Omega with a heart in her throat and a life on the line. I sprint up the side steps to the dais while chaos churns below. A guard reaches for me. The limping guard shoves him back with surprising ferocity. Warden Sarnai turns, eyes blazing, and grabs for my hair. I twist away and slam my elbow into her ribs. Pain shoots up my arm. She gasps, shocked more than hurt, shocked that an Omega hit her. I find the lever under her armrest and yank it hard. The ward lanterns dim. The net around Deacon shimmers and collapses. Deacon drops to one knee, chest heaving, then rises like something resurrected. The hall stares as if it has forgotten how to breathe. Warden Sarnai recoils, hand going to a hidden knife at her belt. Deacon moves toward the dais with the chain at his waist snapping taut, limiting him. Too limiting. He wraps the chain around his forearm once, grips, and pulls. The ring bolt in the floor groans. Silver sparks. The chain sings. Then the bolt rips free of stone with a cracking roar, chunks of rock flying. The sound is so violent the hall flinches as one body. Deacon stands there holding the freed chain like a severed spine. He looks at Warden Sarnai, not with rage, with finality. Her hand trembles on her knife. Deacon speaks low, "No more." Warden Sarnai's gaze flicks toward a side door, calculating escape. I see it too. So does the limping guard. He shouts, "West Gate, she's going." That's all it takes. Several guards who have watched Omegas disappear and told themselves it was policy, move as a pack toward the West Corridor. The prison shifts, the way a body shifts when it decides it's done being sick. Deacon's hand closes around mine, warm, steady, and he tugs me close not as an order, but as a promise. We run. Deacon running through Briarcliff with her hand in mine feels like rewriting a nightmare. The corridors blur, torchlight, iron doors, the stench of sweat and fear, the startled faces of prisoners peering through bars as if they can't believe the fortress is cracking. Guards shout. Boots thunder. Somewhere behind us, Warden Sarnai's voice rises like a whip, trying to lash order back into place. Order is already dead. Lyra runs hard, breath tearing, hair coming loose. She doesn't slow even when her heel skids on damp stone. She doesn't look away from the path ahead. Brave is not the absence of fear. Brave is a frightened heart that moves anyway. The West Corridor is narrower, older, carved into the rock like a vein. The air changes as we approach, colder, salted, laced with river damp. The scent hits me next, suppressant tinctures, floral perfume, and underneath it the raw, trembling truth of an Omega trying not to cry. My blood turns hot. At the end of the corridor, a heavy iron door sits half open. 2 guards stand there, private guards, not standard issue. Their uniforms are darker, their weapons cleaner. Investors' men. One sees me and pales. "Varex," he doesn't finish. I swing the length of chain like a flail, not to kill but to disarm. It wraps around his spear shaft, yanks it out of his hands, and sends him stumbling into the wall. The second guard lunges. Lyra drives her knee into his thigh with a sharp, efficient strike that makes him howl and fold. She's shaking afterward, but she doesn't freeze. We burst through the door. The west gate yard is a hidden pocket of stone open to the night. A cart waits by the outer portcullis, covered in tarp. 2 horses stamp, nervous, sensing blood and wolves and wrongness. A man in a merchant cloak stands beside the cart with a seal ring in his hand, silver band, red gem, not prison staff. Outside money, outside rot. His gaze flicks over Lyra, assessing, greedy. Then it lands on me and turns to fear so sharp it almost satisfies me. Almost, because the tarp shifts. A muffled whimper. My vision narrows. I step toward the cart. The merchant lifts his hands. Now, let's be reasonable. This is contracted. This is lawful relocation. Lyra's voice slices in, ragged with fury. Show me the warrant. He laughs, quick and ugly. Omega, you don't. Lyra moves like a blade. She yanks the tarp back before I can stop her. Inside the cart is a cage. Inside the cage is a young Omega, wrists bound, mouth gagged, skin gray with suppressant overdose. Her eyes are wide and glassy, terrified. And beside her, pressed against the bars like an animal trying to become small enough to disappear, is another figure, older, bruised, face half hidden by hair. Not Omega. Beta or Alpha, drugged. My heart trips when I catch the scent under the suppressant. Wolf, familiar, threaded with ash. Pack scent. No. Can't be. The drugged figure lifts his head slowly, eyes focusing with agonizing effort. A scar cuts across his cheek in a jagged line I remember like a wound in my own skin. My breath stops. A man I buried in my mind 7 years ago because it was easier to live with ghosts than with the possibility of survivors. My second. My brother by oath, not blood. Kalis Adravin. He blinks at me as if he's looking at a myth. His mouth tries to shape my name. The sound that comes out is broken. D. Rage detonates so cleanly it feels cold. The merchant takes a step back. That one is part of the asset bundle, valuable lineage. I grab him by the front of his cloak and slam him against the cart hard enough that the horses rear. Who bought them? His eyes bulge. Investors, private patrons, Calpern's network. Lyra's hand closes around my forearm firm. Not to stop me, to anchor me. I look at her. Her face is pale, eyes blazing, and the bond mark on her wrist looks redder in the torchlight, like a vow that has become a bruise. Evidence, she breathes. We need him alive to testify. Alive. The word costs me. I release the merchant with a shove that makes him crumple, coughing. Keys. He scrambles, shaking, producing a ring of keys. Lyra snatches them and rushes to the cage, hands moving fast despite trembling fingers. She unlocks it, pulls the gag from the young Omega first, and the girl sobs like her lungs have been held underwater for days. Lyra cups the girl's face gently, voice softening into the healer she is beneath all that fire. You're safe now. Breathe. Can you stand? The Omega nods barely. Lyra helps her out, then turns to Kalis. My hands hover at the cage door, suddenly unsure. I've killed men. I've survived Silver. I've lived in a cell with my grief as my only companion. But this is the kind of miracle that terrifies you, because miracles can be taken away. Kalis reaches toward me, fingers shaking, and grips my wrist with surprising strength. His eyes shine wet. Thought you died. My throat tightens, words snarling behind ribs. I didn't. He laughs once, broken. Lucky bastard. Lyra watches us, and something in her expression shifts, understanding blooming with horror. She's connecting it now. My silence, my grief, the vow that wasn't merely sorrow but guilt. They didn't just kill my pack. They sold what was left. Footsteps thunder into the yard. Torches flare beyond the west corridor door. Guards pour in, some from the tribunal, some private. The yard becomes a ring of firelight and steel. At their front strides Warden Sarnai, hair slightly loosened, eyes bright with fury. Her gaze snaps to the open cage, to the freed Omega, to Kalis. For the first time, she looks afraid. Not of me, of witnesses. Return the assets, she snaps. Now. Lyra steps forward, positioning herself between the freed Omega and the warden as if her smaller body can become a wall. They're people. Warden Sarnai's smile is thin and deadly. Healer, you have always been sentimental. Lyra's voice shakes, but it doesn't break. And you have always been a slaver. The word lands like a slap. Several guards flinch again. Some look away. Some look sick. Warden Sarnai's gaze cuts to me. Deacon Varex, you could leave. Take your mate and run. Let the institution correct itself. Correct itself, like rot heals. I feel Lyra stiffen at the word mate, but she doesn't pull away from me. Not now. Not while knives are out. I speak, and the words come easier than they should, fueled by rage and the raw truth of seeing Kalis in chains. My pack burned, I say, voice carrying into the night. Not by enemy, by market. Warden Sarnai's eyes flash. I lift my chain, letting it hang heavy and visible. You sold survivors. Morkant appears behind her, face twisted, and shouts, "Kill them! Kill the Alpha and take the Omega." The limping guard from the tribunal yard steps into view, torch in hand, ledger clutched against his chest like a holy text. He's shaking, but he raises the ledger high. The ledger is copied, he yells, voice cracking into courage. It's already sent through the inspection hawkline. Warden Sarnai freezes. Inspection hawkline is old emergency protocol. Trained courier birds that carry sealed messages to the Crown's traveling magistrates. Once invoked, it can't be uninvoked. Once a magistrate is alerted, the prison becomes a crime scene. The limping guard's hands tremble around the ledger. Sweat shines on his brow. Lyra's eyes widen. She hadn't known. Neither had I, an unexpected ally, brave enough to light a fuse. Warden Sarnai's face turns murderous. Before she can finish, the outer portcullis creaks, not opening, being forced. A horn sounds outside, 3 sharp blasts, the signal of Crown authority. Torches appear beyond the bars. Armored riders in pale cloaks, bearing a sigil stamped in gold, the Crown magistracy. The yard holds its breath. Warden Sarnai's composure returns like a mask slammed back on. She turns smoothly, voice turning to honey. Magistrates, how fortunate. A misunderstanding is underway. A woman steps forward from the riders, tall, stern, her hair braided with a thin gold cord that marks her rank. Her eyes sweep the yard, taking in the open cage, the bound merchant, the trembling Omega, the freed prisoner who smells like my pack, and me silver-cuffed, holding a chain torn from the floor. Her gaze stops on Lyra's marked wrist. Mate protection law is Crown law, too. Warden Calpern, the magistrate says, voice flat, stand aside. Warden Sarnai's jaw tightens. On what grounds? The magistrate lifts a sealed parchment. On grounds of suspected human trafficking, unlawful prisoner sale, and misuse of restraint ordinances. I have a copy of your Westgate seal authorization with signatures that do not match prison oversight. Warden Sarnai's face drains by a shade. Morkant tries to slip backward into shadow. The magistrate's gaze snaps to him. Chief Overseer Morkant, you are under arrest. Chaos ripples again, but this time it's the chaos of a system collapsing under real scrutiny. Warden Sarnai's guards hesitate. Crown riders don't. They move in with efficient, practiced speed, disarming private men, binding wrists, securing the yard. Warden Sarnai's eyes find mine across the firelight. There's hatred there. And something else, admiration, almost twisted into contempt. You always were the inconvenient kind of legend, Varex. I'm not a legend, I say, voice low. I'm a consequence. Her lips curl. And the Omega, is she your conscience now? I glance at Lyra. She's kneeling beside the freed Omega, helping her sip water from a flask one of the riders offered, murmuring steady words into her hair. Her hands are gentle even when her eyes are furious. She's herself, I say. That's why you couldn't own her. The magistrate gestures sharply. 2 riders seize Warden Sarnai. For a moment, she resists, then stills, eyes bright and cold, and allows herself to be taken like a queen walking to exile. As she passes Lyra, she leans just enough to whisper something I barely catch. Bond him, she murmurs, venom sweet. He'll ruin you. Lyra's head lifts. Her gaze meets mine, and in it I see the fear of that possibility, fear that protection becomes possession, fear that safety becomes a cage. I step closer, chain dragging, and lower my voice so only she can hear. I won't, I say. Lyra swallows. Her eyes glisten, furious at herself for being moved. You can't promise that, she whispers. Not with instincts, not with law, not with what everyone expects. I can, I say, and the words are simple because the truth is simple. Because you told me your terms, and I agreed. Her breath shudders. She nods once, small, not surrender, consent to trust, tentative, trembling, brave. Lyra Morning comes to Briarcliff like an apology that doesn't know if it's welcome. The sky beyond the prison walls turns pale, then soft blue, then gold. I stand in the infirmary doorway, my infirmary, somehow still standing, watching Crown riders and investigators move through corridors with quiet authority. They've turned the place inside out. Seals broken, ledgers seized, private locks smashed, cells opened for questioning under oath. The prison is loud with truth now, and it's a different kind of noise than screaming. The freed Omega Sibylline, she finally told me between sobs, sleeps on a cot under clean blankets. Her wrists are bandaged. Her scent is still spiked with suppressant residue, but it's already fading under fresh air and my antidote drafts. Kalis lies in the next bed, feverish but alive. When I finished stitching the reopened wound along his shoulder, he stared at me with a kind of awe that made me uncomfortable, then muttered, "He found an angel." Of course he did, before passing out again. I'm not an angel. I'm an Omega who is tired of being used. Deacon sits in a chair beside Kalis's bed like a carved guardian, silver cuffs removed at last by magistrate decree. His wrists are raw, angry with burned scars. His posture is rigid, but his gaze keeps drifting to me as if he's checking whether I'm still real. The bond mark on my wrist aches faintly, not painful, more like a bruise you press to remind yourself you survived the blow. The magistrate, Lady Electrine Voss, a name that sounds like iron, questioned me for hours in a small office that used to belong to Morkant. I told her everything. The collar, the silver dust packed into wounds, the West Gate, the perfumes, the whispers I'd heard at night, the guardian contracts that were anything but guardian. When I mentioned my own past placement, shame rose like bile. Lady Voss didn't soften. She didn't pity me. She simply wrote it down and said, "You were exploited under color of law. That will be corrected." Corrected. Such a clean word for a life lived with dirty hands on your skin. Now, with dawn spilling through barred windows, Lady Voss returns, boots crisp, face unreadable. She holds a stack of sealed papers. Deacon rises at once, body angling subtly toward me, like his instincts want to put his bulk between me and the world. He catches himself halfway, as if remembering my terms. That small restraint makes my throat tight. Lady Voss looks from him to me. "Healer Lyra Valen, under Crown review, you are cleared of wrongdoing. Your testimony and the physical evidence you retrieved were instrumental." My knees go weak. For a moment, I can't speak. I grip the infirmary doorframe to keep myself upright. Lady Voss continues. Warden Sarnai Calpern and Chief Overseer Morkant are remanded to Crown custody. Their accounts are frozen, their private guards disarmed, and their network is under investigation. A sound escapes me, half laugh, half sob. Sibylline stirs in her sleep, frowning, then relaxes again. Lady Voss turns slightly toward Deacon. Deacon Varex, your case will be reviewed under wrongful imprisonment and attempted extrajudicial execution. For now, you are placed under conditional release as a material witness. Deacon's face remains still, but I see it, the tremor in his breath, the way the words land in him like a door opening. Conditional release. Witness. Not property. Not prisoner. He glances at Kalis, unconscious but alive, and something raw passes across his eyes. Lady Voss's gaze drops to my wrist. About the bond, she says, clinical. It was registered under prison statute during an active tribunal. Such bonds can be contested if coerced. My heart stutters. I hadn't let myself think that far. Lady Voss looks directly at me. Were you coerced, healer? The room goes very quiet. Deacon doesn't speak. He doesn't move. He simply watches me, and in his stillness is the greatest respect anyone has ever given me, the refusal to answer for me. My pulse pounds in my ears. Was I coerced? I was cornered, threatened, used as bait. But when I set terms, Deacon listened. When I demanded autonomy, he agreed. And when the moment came to mark, he waited for my nod like my consent was the only law he truly recognized. I swallow hard. I wasn't coerced, I say, voice shaky. I chose it for legal protection. Lady Voss nods once. And now that protection is no longer required for your safety in this facility. You may dissolve it if you wish. My stomach twists, because the bond isn't only law, it's sensation, instinct. A thread under my skin that hums when Deacon looks at me, as if some part of me has been starved for years and is now terrified of being fed. I lift my chin. I want, I say slowly, forcing myself to be honest, the option to dissolve it later if it stops being mutual. Deacon's throat works. He nods once, solemn. Lady Voss's mouth tightens in what might be approval. That is reasonable. You will sign a mutual consent addendum. It will state that the bond cannot be consummated, expanded, or enforced beyond legal protection without explicit, recorded consent from both parties. Heat rushes to my face at the bluntness, but it's clean heat, not shame. It's the world finally naming what I should have always been allowed to demand. Yes, I whisper. I want that. Deacon's voice is rough when he speaks. Me too. The words hit me unexpectedly hard. Not because he agrees, because he wants the safeguard as much as I do. Lady Voss sets the papers down on a table. Sign, both of you. I step forward, hands trembling as I take the quill. Deacon moves beside me, close enough that his warmth brushes my shoulder but not close enough to trap me. He smells like smoke and pine and something steadier now, soap, clean cloth, the absence of constant silver burn. I sign my name. He signs his. The ink dries like a promise. Lady Voss seals the papers with gold wax. Very well. Healer, you may choose to remain at Briarcliff temporarily as medical staff under Crown oversight, or you may relocate with a stipend. You are no longer under prison authority. No longer under prison authority. I repeat it in my head until it starts to feel possible. Lady Voss turns to leave, then pauses. One more thing. The freed Omega and any other recovered victims will be placed under protection. You may assist in their recovery if you wish. I nod, throat tight. I do. When she's gone, silence settles, softer than before. Deacon looks at me, and for the first time since I met him, his expression isn't carved from survival alone. There's something tentative in it, almost uncertain. He clears his throat, as if the act of speaking still surprises him. "You okay?" It's not a question dressed prettily. It's a man who has lived in brutality asking, plainly, if I'm broken. I let out a breath that shakes. I don't know, I admit. I think I'm relieved and angry and scared all at once. Deacon's gaze drops to my wrist, to the mark. I'm sorry. The apology is so unexpected my eyes sting. For what? I whisper. For everything he could say, for saying mine, for dragging me into danger, for being the kind of alpha the world fears, for making my instincts flare like a betrayal. He answers, voice low, for forcing choice. I shake my head fierce. You didn't force it. They did. You just offered yourself as a shield. He studies me. Still want shield? My chest aches. I should say no. I should insist I don't need anyone. But pride didn't save me before. And the truth, terrible, sweet, is that I want what he offers when it's offered like this, not as ownership, but as presence. I want, I say, choosing each word carefully, the right to ask for it sometimes, and the right to say no other times. Deacon nods once. Yes. A pause. Voice drops. And I want you to stop looking at me like you're waiting for permission to exist. His brow furrows, confusion flickering. You're not a weapon, I say, surprising myself with the fierceness in my tone. Not to me. I know what you can do, I saw it, but I also saw you stop. Deacon's jaw tightens. His gaze goes distant for a moment, as if he's seeing flames and ash and a pack that trusted him to keep them safe. I didn't stop then, he says, voice rough. I failed. My heart twists. You survived, I say, stepping closer before I can overthink it. And you're trying again, that matters. Deacon's breath catches. His hand lifts slow, stopping halfway between us as if he's afraid to reach without being asked. I look at his hand. Then I place my fingers into his palm. The contact is simple. It feels like a door opening. Deacon closes his hand gently around mine, and something in my bond mark hums, warm as sunlight on skin. He doesn't pull me closer. He just holds. It's enough to make me want to cry. Later, as dawn fully claims the prison, we move through the infirmary together, me checking Sibyline's temperature, adjusting her blanket, preparing broth, Deacon carrying water pails, silent and steady. Prisoners watch through bars, eyes tracking him with awe and fear, but when they see him pause so I can pass first, when they see him lower his head to hear my quiet instructions, something shifts in their faces. Not trust. Not yet. But the beginning of disbelief that power must always be cruel. By midday, Crown investigators bring more victims from hidden rooms and private cells. 2 Omegas, 1 young Beta, an old Alpha drugged into docility. I work until my hands cramp, until my back aches, until my throat is raw from murmuring reassurance. Deacon stays nearby without hovering, stepping in only when someone's panic spikes at the sight of an Alpha. That happens, he kneels down, keeps his hands visible, and says very softly, safe, as if the word is a tool he's learning to use with care. Sibylline wakes near evening. She sees Deacon and flinches at first, eyes wide. I take her hand and squeeze. He helped stop them. Sibylline stares, then whispers hoarsely, "Is he yours?" The question makes heat crawl up my neck. Deacon stiffens like he's bracing for my anger. I exhale slowly, then answer with the truest thing I can manage. "No," I say. "I'm mine," Sibylline blinks. Then, after a moment, her shoulders loosen, and she nods as if she's just been given permission to breathe differently. Deacon's gaze stays on me, something like reverence flickering, and then settling into quiet acceptance. That night, when the corridors finally quiet and the investigators' footsteps fade into other wings, I step outside into the west yard. The cart is gone, seized as evidence. The portcullis stands open, guarded by Crown riders. The sky is black velvet scattered with stars. Deacon joins me, moving with the careful silence of a wolf who doesn't want to startle prey. He stops a few feet away, giving me space. I wrap my arms around myself, feeling the night air cool the lingering fever of adrenaline in my skin. I keep waiting, I admit softly, for someone to tell me it was a dream, that they'll drag me back into the office with the drain in the floor. Deacon's voice is low. Not happening. I swallow. You don't know that. I do, he says. He takes a slow step closer. Because I'm here, my throat tightens. That's not a guarantee. His gaze holds mine. It's a choice. A simple statement. A world rebuilt on one word, choice. I look down at my wrist at the faint crescent of his mark, then at his wrist at mine. I'm still angry at you, I confess, because honesty feels like the only safe ground now. For saying mine in front of them. Deacon nods, accepting. I know. And, I add, voice shaking, I'm grateful. He inhales, slow. I know, my eyes sting. I don't know what to do with that. Deacon's mouth twitches, almost a smile, almost pain. Same. We stand in silence for a while, listening to the night. Listening to the prison breathe in a new way, watched by eyes that aren't for sale. Finally, I speak, voice small. What happens to you now? Deacon's gaze lifts to the stars, then back to me. Testify, free Kalis, bury truth, burn lie. Those aren't mutually exclusive, I murmur. He looks at me, expressions softening in that slight way that feels like a hand on my heart. And you? I hesitate, because answering means admitting I want a future. I don't want to stay here forever, I say, but I don't want to run without making sure the victims are safe. Deacon nods once. We do both. We. The word lands gently, not as a claim, but as an invitation. I exhale, trembling. We, I echo, testing it like a new language. Deacon's hand lifts again, slow. Not a demand, not an assumption, a question, my heart stutters. Yes, I whisper. He steps closer and wraps his arms around me carefully, as if I'm something precious that might bolt. His embrace is warm, solid, and so controlled it makes my chest ache with how hard he must be working to keep my autonomy intact. For a moment, I let myself sink into him. I let myself feel safe. Not because the world is suddenly gentle, but because I am no longer alone in the fight against it. When we pull apart, Deacon rests his forehead briefly against mine, a touch so soft it feels like a secret. Then he speaks, voice rough with something tender and furious and new. When bond ends, if you want, I still stay, I swallow. And if I don't want you to, his eyes hold mine, steady as stone. Then I go. My throat tightens with the fierce relief of being believed. Then, I say, and my voice shakes with the weight of possibility, let's not decide tonight. Let's just survive the aftermath. Deacon nods. Okay. And in that simple agreement is the smoothest ending I can imagine, not a fairy tale curtain drop, but a door opening into a future where I get to choose what happens next, and the man beside me will not turn my choices into chains. Behind us, Briarcliff stands under Crown Watch, no longer a market in disguise. Ahead of us, the road waits, hard, uncertain, real. And for the first time in my life, uncertainty feels like freedom. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. I truly appreciate you spending your time with this story. Honestly, I'm still thinking about Lyra's choice. She refused to be owned, yet she still accepted protection on her own terms, and Deacon actually listened. That's rare, and it hit hard. Now I want to know what you think, and be brutally honest. If you were Lyra, would you accept a legal bond to survive and expose the trafficking ring? Or would you refuse on principle, even if it meant losing everything? Tell me why in the comments.